Am I live? It does like four different things that could be the point where it starts going. And I never pay enough attention to go back and be sure of which is, I don't like my I need to do laundry green t-shirt. So I'm gonna button the top button. It's cold enough in here so I can wear a long sleeve shirt while I do this. I just aborted a take because I suddenly realized 5 minutes in that I smoked on camera. I was trying not to do that. I hadn't started reading yet. Zoe was distracting too. Dave was distracting, but I'm less distracted now, in theory. Welcome back to the 10th in my series of readings of The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. What happened, it was one distraction too many, but I also, Gandalf, I meant to not smoke. And I took a big hit off the pipe at the beginning of the stream, which it's just really bad form for me to smoke in these reading streams or swear. And I'm trying not to do that. And yeah, like, oh, you posted a comment right as it was a random moment. Like there were like four different little things that distracted me. And, I did want to take some ibuprofen. But yeah, I suddenly realized like 3 minutes later, like, oh, and I didn't just take a stealthy hit off the bullet pipe like I sometimes do. I took a big hit and there's a big cloud of smoke and I coughed like a big old dumbass stoner hippie. And I was like, oh, right. 3 minutes later, I was debating the merits of just stopping it and starting over. And I was like, oh, right, I'm not supposed to smoke. Or the swearing, I'm never going to get under control. I mean, let's be real, shall we? We're real enough. I mean, we don't have to. We don't have to be real. We can be entirely unreal. How are you, Gandalf? I was just explaining in the aborted take of Stream 10 in the Lord of the Rings series. We are in the middle of a chapter called A Knife in the Dark. Those familiar with the novel know exactly what I'm talking about. Chapter 11. I don't know how I managed to do more than 10 chapters in 10 streams. One of these chapters must be short, obviously. The way the novel is structured, we don't really know why Gandalf has gotten distracted here, and has not met up with Aragorn and the four hobbits in Bree. I'd forgotten about this business where it looks like Gandalf got into it with the Wraiths at Weathertop. Is it Weathertop? I think Weathertop is the next. The geography is a little complicated here, and the movies simplify it. That's actually what I was going to say is, and I've talked about this several times, the BBC radio version stars Ian Holm as Frodo, the voice of Frodo. Ian Holm plays Bilbo, old Bilbo, in the Peter Jackson movie Fellowship of the Ring, so that's cool. It's a good radio show. I haven't gotten really into it. It's a little dry. It's very, very 1970s BBC. I've listened to about 5 or 6 hours of it. It's good. But one thing that I think nobody's noticed is how much the Peter Jackson movies just straight stole from the BBC adaptation. And one of the things they lifted is doing this stretch of Fellowship as plot counterplot, where you see Gandalf investigating. You see scenes where he's like delving in mysterious tomes and strange libraries. You see him discussing the problem with Saruman. There's a wizard's battle. You see him imprisoned. And it's plot counterplot. Like the scenes interrupt it's a second narrative that interrupts the main narrative. It's fairly traditional Adventure Time storytelling. Definitely traditional radio storytelling. That's from the radio show. Peter Jackson's writing team did not come up with doing that way. They also got the Eye of Sauron being like a beacon that looks out over the whole landscape, like physically, like there's an eye on a tower. That's also from the radio show, which is weird because it's such a visual motif, but it's in voiceovers in the radio show. I mean, narration in the radio show. that's in the book, but it's not emphasized the same way. It's not brought forward the same way. But I'm going to pick up where I left off. They've just decided to spend the night in an unsafe place. Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. What am I doing here? Why are my power cords all... You know what? I could just detach this while I do this. This doesn't have to stay plugged in. I'm free. I had my last computer, the power pack thing was messed up in such a way that I couldn't just detach it from the power supply. Like, it had to stay plugged in. Who left a hairbrush on the desk? Who did that? Welcome back. Down in the lowest and most sheltered corner of the dell, they lit a fire and prepared a meal. The shades of evening began to fall, and it grew cold. They were suddenly aware of great hunger, for they had not eaten anything since breakfast, but they dared not make more than a frugal supper. The lands ahead were empty of all save birds and beasts, unfriendly places deserted by all the races of the world. Rangers passed at times beyond the hills, but they were few and did not stay. Other wanderers were rare, and of evil sort. Trolls might stray down at times out of the northern valleys of the misty mountains. Only on the road would travelers be found, most often dwarves, hurrying along on business of their own, and with no help and few... You all right there, Zoe? Can't you leap quietly to places like a normal cat? You're all right, Zoe, you're all right. She hit this ruler is what that noise was. What's up? How are you? Zoe, you cannot... You see what's going on? I don't have a lap. I'm pushed into the desk. You can't get in my lap. No, there's just not... You can try. Don't look at me like it's my fault. I gotta sit with my legs in the desk. I love you too, Zoe. Why don't you try? Hop down. I don't know why you're so dumb in here. There isn't room for you to... That is my balls, but it's fine. I told you weren't going to be able to sit there. Just curl up over here, buddy. What is this? Look, here, let me move some stuff. Here. There's Zoe's spot. You nest in the ramen noodles. You love the ramen noodles. No, you can't do that. Zoe, you can't do that. We've been through this. There's no room for you there. There's not a lap. You can go over here on the floor. Look, the heater's right there. Lie in front of the heater. You love heaters. You're a cat. Dave is drunk and yelling, and it's freaking the cats out a little bit. It's cold in here too, but it's not freezing. It's almost it's hot in California, Bob. Yeah, it's probably 40 out, maybe 30. I don't know. I've had this space heater running in here all day and all night, and it started to finally feel like it's not quite comfortable enough to want to take off this long sleeve shirt, but I could play it off if I had to. They were suddenly aware of great hunger, for they had not eaten
eaten anything since breakfast, but they dared not make more than a frugal supper. Oh, right, I read this paragraph. Only on the road would travelers be found, most often dwarves, hurrying along on business of their own and with no help and few words to spare for strangers. I don't see how our food can be made to last, said Frodo. We have been careful enough in the last few days, and this supper is no feast. But we have used more than we ought, if we have 2 weeks still to go, and perhaps more. There is food in the wild, said Strider, berry, root, and herb, and I have some skill as a hunter at need. You need not be afraid of starving before winter comes, but gathering and catching food is long and weary work, and we need haste. So tighten your belts, and think with hope of the tables of Elrond's house. The cold increased as darkness came on. Peering out from the edge of the dell, they could see nothing but a gray land now vanishing quickly into shadow. The sky above had cleared again and was slowly filled with twinkling stars. Frodo and his companions huddled round the fire, wrapped in every garment and blanket they possessed, but Strider was content with a single cloak and sat a little apart, drawing thoughtfully at his pipe. As night fell and the light of the fire began to shine out brightly, he began to tell them tales to keep their minds from fear. He knew many histories and legends of long ago, of elves and men, and the good and evil deeds of the elder days. They wondered how old he was and where he had learned all this lore. Hello, Jennifer Madonna. That was Zoe. She landed behind me. Do you see her there? Tell us of Gil-galad, said Merry suddenly when he paused at the end of a story of the elf kingdoms. Do you know any more of that old lay that you spoke of? I guess calling a song a lay is not quite as misfortunate as calling a log of wood for the fire a faggot, which he did in yesterday's reading. And given how often he describes things as queer in ways that seem intentional, it's a little... I guess that usage didn't exist then. In fact, I don't know how they're connected linguistically. Oh, but I guess calling cigarettes fags is connected, because they're little burning sticks. That never occurred to me until just now. I'm not British. Hey, Binns, you got here just in time to discuss cigarettes being fags. Binns is Scottish, so he's smoked some fags in his day. Also burned a faggot or two on the fire, I assume. Binns, in the Tolkien I read last night, he referred to logs for the fire as faggots. And I would have actually like rewritten it on the fly and censored it, but I burned right into it before it. Like I was, if you watch that stream, you'll see me smile like about a word and a half before I hit it. Like I hit it like a car hits a tree. How are you doing, Jennifer Madonna? I'm well, though I keep getting distracted from reading. Right, he was going to. It was an old lay. They were discussing an old lay. That's what distracted me. Tell us of Gil-galad, said Merry suddenly when he paused at the end of a story of the elf kingdoms. Do you know any more of that old lay that you spoke of? I do indeed, answered Strider. So also does Frodo, for it concerns us closely. Merry and Pippin looked at Frodo, who was staring into the fire. I know only the little that Gandalf has told me, said Frodo slowly. Gil-galad was the last of the great elf kings of Middle-earth. Gil-galad is starlight in their tongue. With Elendil, the elf friend, he went to the land of... No, said Strider, interrupting. I do not think that tale should be told now with the servants of the enemy at hand. If we win through to the house of Elrond, you may hear it there, told in full. Then tell us some other tale of the old days, begged Sam, a tale about the elves before the fading time. I would dearly like to hear more about elves. The dark seems to press round so close. I will tell you the tale of Tinuviel, said Strider, in brief, for it is a long tale of which the end is not known, and there are none now except Elrond, that remember it aright as it was told of old. It is a fair tale, though it is sad, as are all the tales of Middle-earth, and yet it may lift up your hearts. He was silent for some time, and then he began not to speak, but to chant softly. The leaves were long, the grass was green, the hemlock umbels tall and fair, and in the glade a light was seen of stars and shadows shimmering. Tinuviel was dancing there to music of a pipe unseen, and light of stars was in her hair, and in her raiment glimmering. There Beren came from mountains cold, and lost he wandered under leaves, and where the elven river rolled, he walked alone and sorrowing. He peered between the hemlock leaves, and saw in wonder flowers of gold upon her mantle and her sleeves, and her hair like shadow following. It's a weird scan. Zoe, you cannot get in my lap. There is no room for you there. We went through this. You already tried to get in my lap enough times that I stopped the first stream. I apologize for my wonderful cat. She's sad and bereft. Zoe, you can get over here. There you go. Go do that. I don't know what you just did to the stream. Can you guys hear me? She just did something weird. Hey, Dale. All right, I'm going to keep reading. If you guys can't hear me, something appeared and disappeared, some menu, because Zoe stepped on the keyboard. I don't know whether it's all right. It's probably nothing to do with this. All right. Zoe, stop. Stop. You can lie down there. You cannot keep walking on the keyboard. Don't make me water you. Where's the one that has almost no water in it? The Zoe Punisher. Where was I? Right in the middle of the lay. I was in the middle of the old lay. Enchantment healed his weary feet that over hills were doomed to roam, and forth he hastened strong and fleet and grasped at moonbeams glistening. Through woven woods and elven homes she lightly fled on dancing feet and left him lonely still to roam in the silent forest listening. That doesn't scan either. Do you see what Zoe's doing? Do you want to see this? Zoe, stop trying to creep up on my lap. There's no lap here. I'm edged up under the desk. I know there's normally a lap you can lie on. I have no lap. It's just desk and then the bent part of me. There's nowhere for you to go, buddy. Don't look so bereft, man. You can hang out right there. All right. I'm sorry. I don't even know where I was. Okay. That was one stanza. I mean, I'm not really big on the poetry in Tolkien, I gotta say. I do reading it out loud, like as an actor, is actually more fun than like I've read this book out loud a couple of times to girlfriends, and my daughter read later. The poetry does make me want to be actory about it. It brings out the Shakespeare nerd, but I'd rather not. I'd rather leave the Shakespeare nerd in the drawer. He heard there oft the flying sound of feet as light as linden leaves, or music welling underground, in hidden hollows quavering. Now withered lay the hemlock sheaves, and one by one with sighing sound whispering fell the beechen leaves in the wintry woodland wavering. He sought her ever, wandering far, where leaves of years were thickly strewn, by light of moon and ray of star in frosty heavens shivering. Her mantle glinted in the moon, as on a hilltop high and far she danced, and at her feet was strewn a mist of silver quivering. When winter passed, she came again, and her song released the sudden spring, like rising lark and falling rain and melting water bubbling. He saw the elven flowers spring about her feet and healed again. He longed by her to dance and sing upon the grass untroubling. Again she fled, but swift he came, to Nuviel. He called her by her elvish name, and there she halted, listening. One moment stood she, and a spell his voice laid on her. Beren came, and doom fell on Nuviel, that in his arms lay glistening. As Beren looked into her eyes within the shadows of her hair, The trembling starlight of the skies he saw there mirrored, shimmering. Tinuvial, the elven fair, immortal maiden, elven wise, about him cast her shadowy hair, and arms like silver glimmering. Long was the way that fate them bore o'er stony mountains cold and gray, through halls of iron and darkling door, and woods of nightshade morrowless. The sundering seas between them lay, and yet at last they met once more, and long ago they passed away in the forest, singing sorrowless. Zoe, look at this. Look at this cat. Dude, you can't go there. You cannot go those places. They don't exist. This is a lapless reading, my little furry friend. I refuse to get angry. Poem's over anyway. You're welcome. You're very welcome for me to read. Stiff, awkward, faux medieval poetry. It's like Ossian, but sort of more nouveau. What? Are you already asleep? Strider sighed and paused before he spoke again. That is a song, he said, in the mode that is called Anthanath among the elves, but is hard to render in our common speech, and this is but a rough echo of it. So, it tells of the meeting of Beren, son of Barahir, and Luthien Tenuvio. Let me read that slower. It tells of the meeting of Beren, son of Barahir, and Luthien Tenuvio. Oh, okay. Beren is the son of Barahir, and he met Luthien Tenuvio. I get it. Beren was a mortal man, but Luthien was the daughter of Thingol, a king of elves upon Middle-earth when the world was young. And she was the fairest maiden that has ever been among all the children of this world. As the stars above the mists of the northern lands was her loveliness, and in her face was a shining light. In those days the great enemy, of whom Sauron of Mordor was but a servant, dwelt in Angband in the north, and the elves of the west coming back to Middle-earth made war upon him to regain the Silmarils, which he had stolen. And the fathers of men aided the elves. But the enemy was victorious, and Barahir was slain. And Beren, escaping through great peril, came over the mountains of terror into the hidden kingdom of Thingol in the forest of Neldoreth. There he beheld Luthien singing and dancing in a glade beside the enchanted river Escalduin, and he named her Tinuviel, that is nightingale in the language of old. Many sorrows befell them afterwards, and they were parted long. Tinuviel rescued Beren from the dungeons of Sauron, and together they passed through great dangers and cast down even the great enemy from his throne and took from his iron crown one of the 3 Silmarils, brightest of all jewels, to be the bride price of Luthien to Thingol, her father. Yet at the last Beren was slain by the wolf that came from the gates of Angband, and he died in the arms of Tinuviel. But she chose mortality, and to die from the world, so that she might follow him. And it is sung that they met again beyond the sundering seas. And after a brief time walking alive once more in the green woods, together they passed, long ago, beyond the confines of this world. So it is that Luthien Tinuviel alone of the elf kindred has died indeed and left the world, and they have lost her whom they most loved. But from her the lineage of the elf lords of old descended among men. There live still those of whom Luthien was the foremother, and it is said that her line shall never fail. Elrond of Rivendell is of that kin. For of Beren and Luthien was born Dior Thingol's heir, and of him Elwing the White, whom Earendil wedded, he that sailed his ship out of the mists of the world into the seas of heaven with the Silmaril upon his brow. And of Earendil came the kings of Numenor, that is Westerness. Sometimes Tolkien And two or three of the other major fantasy writers preceding him, Lord Dunsany and William Morris, come to mind particularly. Sometimes he does something that makes it clear he grew up on the King James Bible. Like that passage is so like the begat stuff in the Tanakh, in the King James Bible. Like, how can it not be real history? Look at all these proper names. It's a evidence, lots of ancillary evidence. All these names, this is very real. I don't know why I'm making fun of it. I think it's well done. As Strider was speaking, they watched his strange, eager face dimly lit in the red glow of the wood fire. His eyes shone, and his voice was rich and deep. Above him was a black, starry sky. Suddenly, a pale light appeared over the crown of Weathertop behind him. The waxing moon was climbing slowly above the hill that overshadowed them, and the stars above the hilltop faded. The story ended. The hobbits moved and stretched. "Look," said Merry, "the moon is rising. It must be getting late." The others looked up. Even as they did so, they saw on the top of the hill something small and dark against the glimmer of the moonrise. It was perhaps only a large stone or jutting rock shown up by the pale light. Sam and Merry got up and walked away from the fire. Frodo and Pippin remained seated in silence. Strider was watching the moonlight on the hill intently. All seemed quiet and still, but Frodo felt a cold dread creeping over his heart now that Strider was no longer speaking. He huddled closer to the fire. At that moment, Sam came running back from the edge of the dell. "I don't know what it is," he said, "but I suddenly felt afraid. I dursn't go outside this dell for any money. I felt that something was creeping up the slope." "Did you see anything?" asked Frodo, springing to his feet. "No, sir, I saw nothing, but I didn't stop to look." "I saw something," said Merry, "or I thought I did, away westwards where the moonlight was falling on the flats beyond the shadow of the hilltops. I thought there were 2 or 3 black shapes. They seemed to be moving this way." "Keep close to the fire with your faces outward," cried Strider. "Get some of the longer sticks ready in your hands." For a breathless time they sat there, silent and alert, with their backs turned to the wood fire, each gazing into the shadows that encircled them. Nothing happened. There was no sound or movement in the night. Frodo stirred, feeling that he must break the silence. He longed to shout out aloud. "Hey, Nolan, how are ya?" "Hush," whispered Strider. "What's that?" gasped Pippin at the same moment. Over the lip of the little dell, on the side away from the hill, they felt rather than saw a shadow rise, one shadow or more than one. Hold on, I'm going to read that again. Zoe's got me distracted. Zoe, you've got to stop. You can't keep doing that. She's agitated now because Dave just put loud music on. Dave being drunk is really freaking her out. Pyewacket's just asleep. All right. Now take a hit off the pipe. What do you mean? Do I smoke marijuana? Why would I do that? I'm a very, very serious professional dramatic reader. My name is Rogan Russell Marshall. Let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? In the business of reading Professor Tolkien's masterwork, The Lord of the Rings. Did I say hello, Nolan? Happy St. Patrick's Day to you as well. I'm smoking something green. Ish. It's all the green I got. The empty Canada Dry bottle that I have water in to punish Zoe with should she continue to be impertinent. All right. Over the lip of the little dell, on the side away from the hill, they felt, rather than saw, a shadow rise, one shadow or more than one. They strained their eyes, and the shadows seemed to grow. Soon there could be no doubt. 3 or 4 tall black figures were standing there on the slope, looking down on them. So black were they that they seemed like black holes in the deep shade behind them. Frodo thought that he heard a faint hiss as of venomous breath and felt a thin, piercing chill. Then the shapes slowly advanced. Terror overcame Pippin and Merry. Does that count, smoking something green? I think so. I hope so. I don't have anything else green here. You know what? I have chili ramen noodles. That's the only green in the room. Unless there's no green on this book. Oh, you know what? I am wearing the only green shirt I have. I forgot I have it because it annoys me that it's green. It's the Coleman's Mental Hospital shirt that my old roommate Chuck got the last time he was locked up in the brain pokey. They gave him a goodies bag with a t-shirt and a certificate of something. I can't believe I didn't even notice that. I didn't do that on purpose. It's because I have to do laundry. You guys never see me in this shirt normally. I'm going to leave that like that then, even though it's indecorous. Terror overcame Pippin and Merry, and they threw themselves flat on the ground. Sam shrank to Frodo's side. Frodo was hardly less terrified than his companions. He was quaking as if he was bitter cold, but his terror was swallowed up in a sudden temptation to put on the ring. The desire to do this laid hold of him, and he could think of nothing else. He did not forget the barrow, nor the message of Gandalf, but something seemed to be compelling him to disregard all warnings, and he longed to yield, not with the hope of escape or of doing anything, either good or bad. He simply felt that he must take the ring and put it on his finger. He could not speak. He felt Sam looking at him, as if he knew that his master was in some great trouble, but he could not turn towards him. He shut his eyes and struggled for a while, but resistance became unbearable, and at last he slowly drew out the chain and slipped the ring on the forefinger of his left hand. Immediately, though everything else remained as before, dim and dark, the shapes became terribly clear. He was able to see beneath their black wrappings. There were 5 tall figures, 2 standing on the lip of the dell, 3 advancing. In their white faces burned keen and merciless eyes. Under their mantles were long gray robes. Upon their gray hairs were helms of silver. In their haggard hands were swords of steel. Their eyes fell on him and pierced him as they rushed towards him. Desperate, he drew his own sword, and it seemed to him that it flickered red as if it was a firebrand. 2 of the figures halted. The third was taller than the others. His hair was long and gleaming, and on his helm was a crown. In one hand he held a long sword, and in the other a knife. Both the knife and the hand that held it glowed with a pale light. He sprang forward and bore down on Frodo. At that moment, Frodo threw himself forward on the ground, and he heard himself crying aloud, "O Elbereth, Gilthoniel!" At the same time, he struck at the feet of his enemy. A shrill cry rang out in the night, and he felt a pain like a dart of poisoned ice pierce his left shoulder. Even as he swooned, he caught, as through a swirling mist, a glimpse of Strider leaping out of the darkness with a flaming brand of wood in either hand. With a last effort, Frodo, dropping his sword, slipped the ring from his finger and closed his right hand tight upon it. This is the end of the chapter. I'm just going to sip some water. You know what? I might take another hit off that pipe. By the way, I'm out. I'm smoking a little bit more than normal because I'm not entirely out of reefer gummies. I think I have 1/2 gummy left. I had 8 errands to run today, and I didn't feel well. And I didn't do any of them, including going to one of my day jobs. And one of them was getting Delta 9 reefer gummies from the reefer gummy store. It's a hard knock life. And I'm really not well today. Fine, I'm not well. I was going to say, the scenes in the movies, both the Bakshi movie and the Peter Jackson movie do a good job with the scene I just read. It's so cinematic, though. I mean, it'd be hard to mess it up. I do prefer the Ralph Bakshi movie. I think the Ralph Bakshi movie is just superior to the Peter Jackson movies all around. He had a screenplay by Peter S. Beagle, though, which helps. Peter S. Beagle wrote the novel The Last Unicorn, and he later wrote the movie version of The Last Unicorn for Rankin Bass, who made the TV cell animated movies The Hobbit and The Return of the King. I muted it so I could make gross snorfy noises. Chapter 12, Flight to the Ford. Thanks for being here, guys. When Frodo came to himself, he was still clutching the ring desperately. He was lying by the fire, which was now piled high and burning brightly. His 3 companions were bending over him. "What has happened? Where is the Pale King?" he asked wildly. They were too overjoyed to hear him speak to answer for a while, nor did they understand his question. At length he gathered from Sam that they had seen nothing but the vague, shadowy shapes coming towards them. Suddenly, to his horror, Sam found that his master had vanished, and at that moment a black shadow rushed past him, and he fell. He heard Frodo's voice, but it seemed to come from a great distance, or from under the earth, crying out strange words. They saw nothing more until they stumbled over the body of Frodo, lying as if dead, face downwards on the grass with his sword beneath him. Strider ordered them to pick him up and lay him near the fire, and then he disappeared. That was now a good while ago. Sam plainly was beginning to have doubts again about Strider, but while they were talking, he returned, appearing suddenly out of the shadows. They started, and Sam drew his sword and stood over Frodo, but Strider knelt down swiftly at his side. "I am not a Black Rider, Sam," he said gently, "nor in league with them. I have been trying to discover something of their movements, but I have found nothing. I cannot think why they have gone and do not attack again, but there is no feeling of their presence anywhere at hand." When he heard what Frodo had to tell, he became full of concern and shook his head and sighed. Then he ordered Pippin and Merry to heat as much water as they could in their small kettles and bathe the wound with it. "Keep the fire going well and keep Frodo warm," he said. Then he got up and walked away and called Sam to him. "I think I understand things better now," he said in a low voice. "There seem only to have been 5 of the enemy. Why they were not all here, I don't know, but I don't think they expected to be resisted. They have drawn off for the time being, but not far, I fear. They will come again another night if we cannot escape. They are only waiting because they think that their purpose is almost accomplished and that the ring cannot fly much further. I fear, Sam, that they believe your master has a deadly wound that will subdue him to their will. We shall see." Sam choked with tears. "Don't despair," said Strider. "You must trust me now. Your Frodo is made of sterner stuff than I had guessed, though Gandalf hinted that it might prove so. He is not slain, and I think he will resist the evil power of the wound longer than his enemies expect. I will do all I can to help and heal him. Guard him well while I am away." He hurried off and disappeared again into the darkness. Frodo dozed, though the pain of his wound was slowly growing, and a deadly chill was spreading from his shoulder to his arm and side. His friends watched over him, warming him and bathing his wound. The night passed slowly and wearily. Dawn was growing in the sky, and the dell was filling with gray light when Strider at last returned. "Look," he cried, and stooping, he lifted from the ground a black cloak that had lain there hidden by the darkness. A foot above the lower hem there was a slash. "This was the stroke of Frodo's sword," he said. "The only hurt that it did to his enemy, I fear, for it is unharmed, but all blades perish that pierced that dreadful king. More deadly to him was the name of Elbereth, and more deadly to Frodo was this." He stooped again and lifted up a long, thin knife. There was a cold gleam in it. As Strider raised it, they saw that near the end its edge was notched and the point was broken off. But even as he held it up in the growing light, they gazed in astonishment, for the blade seemed to melt and vanished like a smoke in the air, leaving only the hilt in Strider's hand. "Alas," he cried, "it was this accursed knife that gave the wound. Few now have the skill in healing to match such evil weapons, but I will do what I can." He sat down on the ground, and taking the dagger hilt, laid it on his knees, and he sang over it a slow song in a strange tongue. Then, setting it aside, he turned to Frodo and in a soft tone spoke words the others could not catch. From the pouch at his belt, he drew out the long leaves of a plant. "These leaves," he said, "I have walked far to find, for this plant does not grow in the bare hills, but in the thickets away south of the road I found it in the dark by the scent of its leaves." He crushed a leaf in his fingers, and it gave out a sweet and pungent fragrance. "It is fortunate that I could find it, for it is a healing plant that the men of the West brought to Middle-earth. Athelas they named it, and it grows now sparsely and only near places where they dwelt or camped of old, and it is not known in the north except to some of those who wander in the wild. It has great virtues, but over such a wound as this its healing powers may be small." He threw the leaves into the boiling water and bathed Frodo's shoulder. The fragrance of the steam was refreshing, and those that were unhurt felt their minds calmed and cleared. The herb had also some power over the wound, for Frodo felt the pain and also the sense of frozen cold lessen in his side, but the life did not return to his arm, and he could not raise or use his hand. He bitterly regretted his foolishness, and reproached himself for weakness of will, for he now perceived that in putting on the ring he obeyed not his own desire but the commanding wish of his enemies. He wondered if he would remain maimed for life, and how they would now manage to continue their journey. He felt too weak to stand. It's interesting because reading it out loud, you notice this is the second or third bit through this stretch where when it requires stage and screen style conflict driven dialogue, like dialogue that doesn't grow out of the characters but out of the situation, he tends to dodge it. Like that's just, it would have been just as easy to do as dialogue between Aragorn and Frodo, the passage I just read, the last bit, but he didn't do it that way. I think it's because Tolkien actually didn't read much modern fiction, and so The Hobbit, right, was a minor bestseller written for children, grade school level. It's like 4th or 5th grade level writing. The publisher liked it. It was a minor success. Publisher and his kids liked it. So he kept asking Tolkien to write a sequel. And in the lead up to World War II, Tolkien arguably invented the modern adult fantasy novel in writing The Fellowship of the Ring, the beginning of the trilogy, the book I'm reading now. So I think Tolkien was aware that he was expected to write the kind of adventure story, that sort of boys' adventure pitched both at grade school level and at adult level. Nobody had done that in fantasy literature before Tolkien and Howard and a couple of other writers. It's a very obscure place to be writing in. But I think sometimes when he does the adventure novel stuff, the Alexander Dumas, Robert Louis Stevenson type stuff, he's a little uncomfortable. Like, it's not like the world building stuff and the lush descriptions. I mean, the writing's gorgeous. It's so elegant. He's such an elegant writer. He wondered if he would remain maimed for life and how they would now manage to continue their journey. He felt too weak to stand. The others were discussing this very question. They quickly decided to leave Weathertop as soon as possible. "I think now," said Strider, "that the enemy has been watching this place for some days. If Gandalf ever came here, then he must have been forced to ride away, and he will not return. In any case, we are in great peril here after dark since the attack of last night, and we can hardly meet greater danger wherever we go." As soon as the daylight was full, they had some hurried food and packed. It was impossible for Frodo to walk, so they divided the greater part of their baggage among the 4 of them and put Frodo on the pony. In the last few days, the poor beast had improved wonderfully. It already seemed fatter and stronger, and had begun to show an affection for its new masters, especially for Sam. Bill Ferny's treatment must have been very hard for the journey in the wild to seem so much better than its former life. They started off in a southerly direction. This would mean crossing the road, but it was the quickest way to more wooded country, and they needed fuel, for Strider said that Frodo must be kept warm, especially at night, while fire would be some protection for them all. It was also his plan to shorten their journey by cutting across another great loop of the road. East beyond Weathertop, it changed its course and took a wide bend northwards. They made their way slowly and cautiously round the southwestern slopes of the hill and came in a little while to the edge of the road. There was no sign of the riders. But even as they were hurrying across, they heard far away 2 cries, a cold voice calling and a cold voice answering. Trembling, they sprang forward and made for the thickets that lay ahead. The land before them sloped away southwards, but it was wild and pathless. Bushes and stunted trees grew in dense patches with wide barren spaces in between. The grass was scanty, coarse, and gray, and the leaves in the thickets were faded and falling. It was a cheerless land, and their journey was slow and gloomy. They spoke little as they trudged along. Frodo's heart was grieved as he watched them walking beside him with their heads down and their backs bowed under their burdens. Even Strider seemed tired and heavy-hearted. Hold on, I'm going to take some more Tylenol. I'm going to take some more gummy. I think. I don't know what I got left here. Right. Just a little one. I'm going to take both of them. I'll get more and more. God help us all. At least we still have weed. I mean, we collectively. The world is crumbling in war and chaos, but at least we have pipe weed. Gummies made from it. Boy, that powdered kratom is delicious. Good. I could heat it up and put it on a plate, and it wouldn't taste any better. It tastes as good as it's ever going to taste right out of the jar. Wow. Fuck yeah. Oh my God, I'm not supposed to swear. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you, oh so very ordinary. I'm wearing a green shirt. Comics and tortillas. Thanks for the compliment, by the way. I missed responding to you a minute ago. I have the channel all set to not for kids. And part of the reason to read Lord of the Rings late at night like this is so I won't literally bait children in here. I don't think actual children would like Lord of the Rings much or for long, but I love adult fantasy, pre-Tolkien adult fantasy. I feel like after Tolkien. Joshua T. Leaves, how are you? You just missed the Frodo got knifed already. They're about to flee from Weathertop to the ford. Thanks for being here, guys. This is fun. They wouldn't. It's hard to avoid for kids for 25 years. Well, I mean, comics and tortillas, there's also to be considered, yeah. Anyone who wants to be in here, hearing me read Lord of the Rings with some fairly well-informed commentary and discussion, God forbid they should see me smoke weed or hear me swear. Gee, what a loss to their intellectual development, to the possibility of possibly more positive influences than, oh wait, there isn't much more by way of a positive influence than reading Tolkien out loud. It's the weed is legal here too, or I would make a point of not smoking it on camera. And yeah, for the stream, I mean, I've been saying it all the time, but it's true. I'm just not going to do anything illegal anymore, at all, for any reason. I say it regretfully, but what I'm regretting in saying this is that I'm old enough that that's just an easy thing to yeah, it's easy. Before the first day's march was over, Frodo's pain began to grow again, but he did not speak of it for a long time. 4 days passed, without the ground or the scene changing much, except that behind them Weathertop slowly sank, and before them the distant mountains loomed a little nearer. Yet since that far cry they had seen and heard no sign that the enemy had marked their flight or followed them. They dreaded the dark hours and kept watch in pairs by night, expecting at any time to see black shapes stalking in the gray night, dimly lit by the cloud-veiled moon. But they saw nothing and heard no sound but the sigh of withered leaves and grass. Not once did they feel the sense of present evil that had assailed them before the attack in the dell. It seemed too much to hope that the riders had already lost their trail again. Perhaps they were waiting to make some ambush in a narrow place. And I find that when I get really into doing the dramatic reading voice, I'm twitchy and make faces. It's like playing violin or guitar. Like, I'm not sure what's going on there because it's still developing. Like, I'm not, but I kind of, it's best if I just let it go. Like, it doesn't matter if I look funny if the voice is coming out good. At the end of the 5th day, the ground began once more to rise slowly out of the wide, shallow valley into which they had descended. Strider now turned their course again northeastwards, and on the 6th day they reached the top of a long, slow-climbing slope and saw far ahead a huddle of wooded hills. Away below them they could see the road sweeping round the feet of the hills, and to their right a gray river gleamed pale in the thin sunshine. In the distance they glimpsed yet another river in a stony valley half-veiled in mist. "I'm afraid we must go back to the road here for a while," said Strider. "We have now come to the river Horwell, that the elves call Mithiathel. It flows down out of the Etten Moors, the Troll Fells north of Rivendell, and joins the Loudwater away in the south. Some call it the Grey Flood after that. Why can't they all call it the Grey Flood the whole time? Mithiathel. Miteithel. It is great water before it finds the sea. There is no way over it below its sources in the Etten Moors except by the last bridge on which the road crosses." "What is that other river we can see far away there?" asked Mary. "That is Loudwater, the Bruinen of Rivendell," answered Strider. "The road runs along the edge of the hills for many miles from the bridge to the ford of Bruinen, but I have not yet thought how we shall cross that water. One river at a time. We shall be fortunate indeed if we do not find the last bridge held against us." I'm pretty sure that Tolkien is the first fantasy writer. Well, no. The first fantasy writers to engage in world building in such a way that actually drawing a map was important were Frank Baum in the Oz books and Edgar Rice Burroughs in his Mars series and his Pellucidar series. That's 1900s, like between 1900 and 1910, basically both those breakthroughs. Neither of them gets much credit for that. They aren't widely read by serious adults, especially now. Nobody reads the Oz books hardly. The idea that the map you create for the world you have built for fantasy storytelling plays tactically on a level that matters in like an almost military sense. That might be fresh with Tolkien. Tolkien and Robert E. Howard was doing similar stuff around the same time, I think, but I don't know that Robert Howard, like, he thought about tactics like he'd read the Caesars, but I don't know that he really, I mean, he worried about where the countries were on his map for sure. But it being like tactical on the micro level, like days march, like really measured out, that might be fresh with Tolkien. E.R. Addison might have done it a little bit before him in The Worm Ouroboros, but I don't think so. Not really. I feel like there's one more example I'm missing that precedes Tolkien on this, but not really. Oh, Edgar Rice Burroughs is one of my favorites. I'm probably, if I live long enough, I'm going to read all the John Carter stories in here. I just don't have my books anymore. I don't have my books anymore. Particularly the first 3 of those are just masterpieces. Zoe, there's nowhere you can go back here. Stop clawing me. Ow, 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 ow. Stop. You're going to get hurt. What are you doing? She tried to climb up my back. Are you all right, Zoe? Yes, she's grooming the claw that got stuck. Are you all right? Angry grooming. Zoe. You know what? Maybe this is what she wants. Yeah? You guys want treats? You are so spoiled because this chat buys our groceries. They get all the treats they want. It's too bad there isn't a better pet store that's ever open anywhere near here. Closest place I can get catnip is only open 5 days a week and they close at like 5. Like it's a godforsaken. It's not as godforsaken as Lima, Ohio, but all right, I'm done. Hold on. Yeah, Gandalf. The first 3 John Carter stories are a trilogy. A Princess of Mars that they made the Disney movie of that flopped, and The Gods of Mars and Warlord of Mars. Those 3 are just a stone cold masterpiece. Collectively, they're just incredible. I've read them out loud several times. I really love Icarus Bros. I'm not up on the Tarzan novels. I've never read them past the first 2. I know a couple of people who are world-class Tarzan experts. Martin Powell writes Tarzan comic books and stuff, and Donald Glutt, I know him. I should ask them which Tarzan novel to, like, I should tell them I'm reading out loud and ask them which of the, like, 30 Tarzan novels is a good one to read cold, because I've never read them. Have I any Brandon Sanderson? No, that doesn't ring a bell with me. I watched the first one as a movie a while back. Oh yeah, Tracy Lords was in the other Princess of Mars movie, the one that, not the big Disney one, but the one they made for TV. I haven't seen that. I mean, she's too old to play Dija Thoris by then. Still, better casting than the girl who was in the Disney movie. I can't remember who she is, but she's really boring, considering she's supposed to play like the princess who's the sexiest woman on the planet, literally, like Helen of Troy. It's a little low key. I don't remember who she is. Yeah, because the novel was public domain Gandalf, they made a straight to video, low budget Princess of Mars, which I assume is pretty good for what it is. Yeah, Tracy Lords was in it. Like, it wasn't nothing. I love Tracy Lords. She's awesome. Sister Dearest, great movie. I'm a little surprised I had that title that quick, actually. I do like Tracy Lords. I have seen a bunch of her early movies, but I'm surprised I was right there. Anyway. Right. We shall be fortunate indeed if we do not find the last bridge held against us. Next day, early in the morning, they came down again to the borders of the road. Pyewacket, must you? Your sister causes enough trouble with this. Do you want to hang out up here and ruin everything for me, too? There isn't a spot to lay down there. This is Pyewacket's tail lashing against my head. Now she's rubbing her face on the corner of the... Can you lay down? If I move my phone, will you stop stepping on it? No, you can't lay down. I love you too, Pyewacket. That's Pyewacket. Yeah, I mean, Tracy Lords has probably been in cheaper movies, Gandalf. I mean, they didn't spend much on Sister Dearest. Though they did shoot it on film. They might have spent more than Princess of Mars, actually. I mean, it did have some big stars in it. Tom Byron. I just pulled it. He might not have actually been in that, but I think he was. I don't know that movie that well. Pyewacket, you got to stop messing with me. I can't keep reading until you settle. No, it is called Princess of Mars, Gandalf. Oh, they might have changed it again. The Disney movie's called just John Carter, which is a terrible title. Why did they do that? It's a Disney movie. based on a book called A Princess of Mars, and they decided to take princess out of the title. What were they thinking? Who would do that? Like, it's live action Disney. We want to make sure boys like it. Better not play up the whole Martian princess thing. Like, what? The stupidest decision in marketing history, one of them. Pyewacket, you got to stop hovering. I can't read until you lay down. You got to not stare at me lashing your tail. What are you doing, buddy? What is this, Pyewacket? You can't see, but she's Pie. Why can't you see her? There she is. I was like, what? Pyewacket, what are you doing? You can't just stare at me. You've got to go somewhere. Yeah, you can. Do you want to lay down there? Is that what you're saying? What are you trying to tell me? What is this? You can't get in my lap either. And you never get in my lap. Why would you want to? Is that good? Can you lay down there? Yeah, that's what you wanted? Okay. All right. Sorry for all the scraping around, guys. The YouTube movie had the name changed, like a 50s re-release. Oh my God, there's a terrible poem coming up. There's a terrible poem coming up. I don't think I can even read this one, but I'm gonna. Pyewacket somehow lost my place in the book. What did I? You guys must have seen what happened. I don't know what happened. That poem is not coming up, thank God, because I'm not in the mood for it. Right, we shall be fortunate enough if we do not find the last bridge held against us. Next day, early in the morning, they came down again to the borders of the road. Sam and Strider went forward, but they found no sign of any travelers or riders. Here, under the shadow of the hills, there had been some rain. Strider judged that it had fallen 2 days before and had washed away all footprints. No horsemen had passed since then, as far as he could see. They hurried along with all the speed they could make. I didn't know they were cooks. I'm going to take another hit off my pipe. I'm sorry. All the speed they could make. Why, that's a lot. I mean, they've got Gandalf with them, the fireworks expert. I'm suppressing jokes about Gandalf making speed. That's all that giggling was me making like 8 different jokes about Gandalf being a meth maker and just like trying to move along and not be stoned enough to dissolve into giggles over this. I might have to bring up old Tom Benzedrine. Probably most of you don't know, but the National Lampoon, the Harvard Lampoon, published a great book-length parody of Lord of the Rings called Board of the Rings. And in Board of the Rings, it's like Naked Gun Mad Magazine type parody. And Tom Bombadil is Tom Benzedrine. And all his songs are about drugs. Orcs are narcs. That's the only other joke I really remember, is that orcs are narcs. Which never gets old. Like every time they're about to be ambushed by narcs or attacked by narcs or skirmish with narcs. All right. Sorry. I'm ruining everything. Gandalf, you've never read Board of the Rings? I kind of, at some point a few nights ago, I realized I'm kind of obliged to read Board of the Rings here. It's really good. It's been reprinted a couple of times. It's been reprinted in the modern era. It should be pretty easy to find a cheap copy of it. Yeah, it was that when the National Lampoon went national. I mean, when the Harvard Lampoon went national before it became the National Lampoon, they published Lord of the Rings, like right at the top of the 70s. I don't know who actually wrote it. It's really funny. No, I do remember one more joke from it, that the character Boromir's named Bromocell, Frodo's named Frito, and Bilbo's named Dildo. um, but Boromir, Bromocell, he knows what page he's going to die on. Like he has a premonition. That's like it's a rhyme and it ends, you'll cash in your chips around page 88. And it like there are all these jokes about him watching the page numbers as you read the book, like knowing like exactly how long he has to live. All right, let's be very serious. Welcome back to the Roganautica channel. I am, of course, your host, Rogan Russell Marshall. And this is the 10th in my presumably eventually interminable and endless series of readings of Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. And I'm sure they'll probably twist my arm and make me read some of the really heavy, dull Tolkien later on. Oh my God, you want to get in my lap too, Zoe? All right, I've got them both now. There's Zoe's tail. They hurried along with all the speed they could make. And that's a very big hurry. Why is that getting me? They hurried along with all the speed they could make. And after a mile or two, they saw the last bridge ahead, at the bottom of a short, steep slope. They dreaded to see black figures waiting there, but they saw none. Strider made them take cover in a thicket at the side of the road while he went forward to explore. Before long, he came hurrying back. I can see no sign of the enemy, he said, and I wonder very much what that means. But I have found something very strange. He held out his hand and showed a single pale green jewel. I found it in the mud in the middle of the... No, Pyewacket, you can't go over there. What is with you guys? Why are you doing this? Are you out of water or something? Hold on. This usually means they want something. It might be because it's cold. They probably want me to clean the litter, but I need to empty out the litter at the bottom and get a whole new thing of litter. It's one of the errands I needed to run today that was too cold and I was too ill to run. No, that's not it, though. Is it water? Are you scared to eat the food if it's on the thing? Maybe they're just worried about Dave being drunk. He is yelling at an empty room in there. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what that's about. He was falling over earlier. He fell over and he's drunk and he fell over and then I went rushing out to help him up and he complained that I wouldn't help him up if I heard him fall over. It was like, I am. What do you mean? I'm standing here helping you up right now. Like I guess he's yelling at the TV. I don't know, Gandalf. He wants me to hang out with him instead of streaming. He doesn't seem to follow that this is on a schedule. Hey, Oscar Bokoblin, how are you? Yeah, I mean, I've been wanting to read Tolkien earlier, but I'm like, it's not a tight schedule, but I'm on a schedule. Yesterday was filled with crazy people. Yeah, I didn't get to do a reading stream because the chat stream was so wild. That was wild. And the numbers were crazy. Like, I don't know why that worked that way, but there's usually about 10 people in here, and there was like 30 or 40 at a time in there. That was fun, yeah. I mean, I guess that's what was like me getting into it with the Nazi troll. the guy who refused to admit Jesus was Jewish. And then he wouldn't admit what race he was so that I could decide which race needs to go first when I'm in charge of the genocide. And then he went to, what if I was black? Would that make a difference? And then it took him like 15 minutes after that to realize he could have just claimed to be black. And then I had to explain that there are indeed black people who don't like Jews, man, for the same reason that you don't. It's not, black people and Jewish people are not all on the woke team. Strange white racist from nowhere who only gets his news about his own racism from his radio. Like, let me explain to you, as a Jewish guy who has a lot of black friends, a lot of black guys really don't like Jews, man. I don't know what to tell you. You need to get out in the real world some more. You might find some common, some common ground with some unexpected allies, just like the characters in Lord of the Rings, actually, just like the dwarves and the elves working together to overthrow Sauron. See, it's all really one narrative here on the channel. It's all about movies. I'm bringing it up now because it's fun to talk about, but the chat was, I didn't do a short chat stream tonight before I came in here to do this because I didn't want that to happen again. I might go in there after this, though. I could go in there. I feel like it's like going into the, I'll just put on my dog costume and crawl into the pound with the mutts. Why not? Let's go. I might go after this. My teeth are such a mess. You feel like something similar happened? Well, Oscar, it's a little bit time of night, but also the algorithm should make sure, right? The algorithm should be smart enough to figure out who to bait in to make that happen again. Like, if I'm willing to engage like that every night, that should happen every night, right? Oh my God, the Nazis can't always be that stupid, can they? I think we can agree that Jesus was at least one good Jew. All right, I'm going to read some more Tolkien. How far is the flight to the ford? This is a big action sequence that takes a little bit to play out. Oh, this is the end of book 1. Oh. Maybe I should go long here. Maybe I should eat another mushroom gummy. It's 15 more pages. I don't know how long it takes me to read a page here. Yeah, I don't have to get up early in the morning. All right. Yeah, I'm going to set up to read the rest of this in one go in this reading stream. And if I'm awake and lit enough, I'm going to do another mushroom gummy. Then I'll go and a couple more Tylenol for the teeth, which I've been going for an hour. My God, I'm so going to bash myself in the face with that lamp if I'm not careful. Our mushroom gummy is good. They don't taste good. I microdose them for depression. And it's a little bit like Adderall. Like, I dial up the dose a little bit. Like, I stack them over the course of a day and I dial up the doses a little bit to be giddy when I'm streaming. I used to be an Adderall guy. I don't have a prescription anymore. If I were allowed to proselytize about them, I would. I don't know how safe they are. I don't trust the FDA on this kind of stuff anymore. Every brand is different. Some brands have made me straight up crazy in a bad way. They're keeping me from being too depressed to function. This channel is entirely built on them. Are there visuals? They don't. These over-the-counter legal mushroom gummies don't work great if you take enough to outright trip. Sound is better than visuals. When I've taken enough to get the visuals really going, it's enough to give you a stomach ache and a headache and make you take a nap. It's kind of like drinking too much beer. At some point, the buzz shuts down. Um, so I mean, it's proprietary blend of 3 or 4 different legal mushrooms that's in these things. So not only will your personal mileage vary, it'll vary wildly from brand to brand. So, and I'm straight up not allowed to recommend brands, talk about them here, consume them on stream, and talk about the effects while they happen. Like it's YouTube doesn't allow that. So, and yeah, I don't trust the FDA. Like I don't actually believe they're safe. I mean, I know Amanita taken in the wild, if you don't cook the stuff right to cook the toxins out, you can do yourself nerve damage. So caveat emptor, literally. Eat or be warned. Right. It's 1:30. I'm going to read the rest of this. Book 1 of Lord of the Rings. But I have found something very strange. He held out his hand and showed a single pale green jewel. I found it in the mud in the middle of the bridge, he said. It is a beryl, an elf stone. Whether it was set there or let fall by chance, I cannot say, but it brings hope to me. I will take it as a sign that we may pass the bridge, but beyond that I dare not keep to the road without some clearer token. At once they went on again. They crossed the bridge in safety, hearing no sound but the water swirling against its 3 great arches. A mile further on, they came to a narrow ravine that led away northwards through the steep lands on the left of the road. Here Strider turned aside, and soon they were lost in a somber country of dark trees winding among the feet of sullen hills. Gandalf, I know of a channel that mentioned her brand of weed gummies and got whacked by YT. I did make a standalone video about the Amanita gummies, and cautiously hedged my statements about, like, I think they've done better for my depression than most, if not any, pharmaceutical that's legal and available would have done. And they seem to be safe. There isn't, this was like a year or 2 ago. It's towards the beginning of the channel. At some point recently, I realized that the bots had demonetized that specific video. Like it had like a yellow flag. And I just deleted it. Like the live streams now, I wasn't making live streams then. I was only making standalone videos. So yeah. Yeah, I work at a store that sells this stuff now and sells all these legal weed products. It's a shame I can't actually like talk about brands and products. Maybe there's some other platform where I can. On the other hand, like here on this channel, there are a lot of kids around. Like not children, but young people, and it's best if they never touch any of this weird shit. And like you really I mean, my own kids, I knew that they would grow up sideways like me, but in an ideal world, I would hope that they would never have so much as drunk a beer or smoked a cigarette, let alone marijuana. Here in the real world, I knew better, but they're sadly banning hemp soon. Yeah, I don't really even like having this kind of a detailed conversation about this stuff in here, though it happens sometimes. And a couple of times I've banned people for proselytizing about hallucinogens in a way that's anti-legal and not supportable by research. Like I don't want anyone just talking about this stuff in here without being super responsible. So like, let's not talk about that stuff anymore. Please and thank you. It's all right, Wit. No, the guy I banned was actually, it was a channel about like magic mushrooms, and he just kept commenting about all the special medical properties of all these illegal hallucinogens, like, and about it took me a minute actually to realize it was just gravely irresponsible for me to let it go. Like that there's people young enough in here that they see me read a strange comment about how some toxic plant heals nerve damage because it's magic to American Indians or something. And like, I'm just nodding and smiling because I'm thinking, like, yeah, as every wise druggie knows, these kind of guys are just crazy. Like, sometimes they're a little bit right, but generally they're crazy. Past LSD is safe as milk. There's nothing that you can, like, don't say any of that shit. Come on. In fact, it was pharmaceutical LSD that the Surgeon General at the time described as safe as milk. So the statement doesn't even apply anymore. What a world. Paul Starness is the foremost mycologist and has funny stories. The hobbits were glad to leave the cheerless lands and the perilous road behind them, but this new country seemed threatening and unfriendly. As they went forward, the hills about them steadily rose. Here and there upon heights and ridges they caught glimpses of ancient walls of stone and the ruins of towers. They had an ominous look. Frodo, who was not walking, had time to gaze ahead and to think. He recalled Bilbo's account of his journey and the threatening towers on the hills north of the road in the country near the Troll's Wood where his first serious adventure had happened. Frodo guessed that they were now in the same region and wondered if by chance they would pass near the spot. Who lives in this land, he asked, and who built these towers? Is this troll country? No, said Strider. Trolls do not build. No one lives in this land. Men once dwelt here ages ago, but none remain now. They became an evil people, as legends tell, for they fell under the shadow of Angmar, but all were destroyed in the war that brought the North Kingdom to its end. But that is now so long ago that the hills have forgotten them, though a shadow still lies on the land. Where did you learn such tales if all the land is empty and forgetful? Asked Peregrine. The birds and beasts do not tell tales of that sort. I totally forgot to set it for all chat like a while ago. Gee, I hope I didn't miss anybody's comments. I did miss a couple. Sorry, guys. The heirs of Elendil do not forget all things past, said Strider, and many more things than I can tell are remembered in Rivendell. Have you often been to Rivendell? Said Frodo. I have, said Strider. I dwelt there once, and still I return when I may. There my heart is, but it is not my fate to sit in peace, even in the fair house of Elrond. The hills now began to shut them in. The road behind held on its way to the river Bruinen, but both were now hidden from view. The travelers came into a long valley, narrow, deeply cloven, dark and silent. Trees with old and twisted roots hung over cliffs and piled up behind into mounting slopes of pine wood. The hobbits grew very weary. They advanced slowly, for they had to pick their way through a pathless country encumbered by fallen trees and tumbled rocks. As long as they could, they avoided climbing for Frodo's sake, and because it was, in fact, difficult to find any way up out of the narrow dales. They had been 2 days in this country when the weather turned wet. The wind began to blow steadily out of the west and pour the water of the distant seas on the dark heads of the hills in fine, drenching rain. By nightfall they were all soaked, and their camp was cheerless, for they could not get any fire to burn. The next day the hills rose still higher and steeper before them, and they were forced to turn away northwards out of their course. Strider seemed to be getting anxious. They were nearly 10 days out from Weathertop, and their stock of provisions was beginning to run low. It went on raining. That night they camped on a stony shelf with a rock wall behind them, in which there was a shallow cave, a mere scoop in the cliff. Frodo was restless. The cold and wet had made his wound more painful than ever, and the ache and sense of deadly chill took away all sleep. He lay tossing and turning and listening fearfully to the stealthy night noises, wind and chinks of rock, water dripping, a crack, the sudden rattling fall of a loosened stone. He felt that black shapes were advancing to smother him, but when he sat up he saw nothing but the back of Strider sitting hunched up, smoking his pipe and watching. He lay down again and passed into an uneasy dream, in which he walked on the grass in his garden in the Shire, but it seemed faint and dim, less clear than the tall black shadows that stood looking over the hedge. In the morning he woke to find that the rain had stopped. The clouds were still thick, but they were breaking, and pale strips of blue appeared between them. The wind was shifting again. They did not start early. Immediately after their cold and comfortless breakfast, Strider went off alone, telling the others to remain under the shelter of the cliff until he came back. He was going to climb up, if he could, and get a look at the lie of the land. When he returned, he was not reassuring. "We have come too far to the north," he said, "and we must find some way to turn back southwards again. If we keep on as we are going, we shall get up into the Ettendales far north of Rivendell. That is troll country, and little known to me. We could perhaps find our way through and come round to Rivendell from the north, but it would take too long, for I do not know the way, and our food would not last. So somehow or other we must find the ford of Bruinen." The rest of that day they spent scrambling over rocky ground. They found a passage between two hills that led them into a valley running southeast, the direction that they wished to take. But towards the end of the day they found their road again barred by a ridge of high land. Its dark edge against the sky was broken into many bare points like teeth of a blunted saw. They had a choice between going back or climbing over it. They decided to attempt the climb, but it proved very difficult. Before long, Frodo was obliged to dismount and struggle along on foot. Even so, they often despaired of getting their pony up, or indeed of finding a path for themselves, burdened as they were. The light was nearly gone, and they were all exhausted when at last they reached the top. They had climbed onto a narrow saddle between two higher points, and the land fell steeply away again, only a short distance ahead. Frodo threw himself down and lay on the ground, shivering. His left arm was lifeless, and his side and shoulder felt as if icy claws were laid upon them. The trees and rocks about him seemed shadowy and dim. "We cannot go any further," said Merry to Strider. "I am afraid this has been too much for Frodo. I am dreadfully anxious about him. What are we to do? Do you think they will be able to cure him at Rivendell if we ever get there?" "We shall see," answered Strider. "There is nothing more that I can do in the wilderness, and it is chiefly because of his wound that I am so anxious to press on. But I agree that we can go no further tonight." "What is the matter with my master?" asked Sam in a low voice, looking appealingly at Strider. "His wound was small, and it is already closed. There's nothing to be seen but a cold white mark on his shoulder." "Frodo has been touched by the weapons of the enemy," said Strider, "and there is some poison or evil at work that is beyond my skill to drive out. But do not give up hope, Sam. 'Tis a long book, and merely begun." Night was cold up on the high ridge. They lit a small fire down under the gnarled roots of an old pine that hung over a shallow pit. It looked as if stone had once been quarried there. They sat huddled together. The wind blew chill through the pass, and they heard the treetops lower down moaning and sighing. Frodo lay half in a dream, imagining that endless dark wings were sweeping by above him, and that on the wings rode pursuers that sought him in all the hollows of the hills. I'm going to have to get up and get more water in a couple of pages. Thanks for being here, guys. The morning dawned bright and fair. The air was clean and the light pale and clear in a rain-washed sky. Their hearts were encouraged, but they longed for the sun to warm their cold, stiff limbs. As soon as it was light, Strider took Merry with him and went to survey the country from the height to the east of the pass. The sun had risen and was shining brightly when he returned with more comforting news. They were now going more or less in the right direction. If they went on, down the further side of the ridge, they would have the mountains on their left. Some way ahead, Strider had caught a glimpse of the Loudwater again, and he knew that, though it was hidden from view, the road to the ford was not far from the river and lay on the side nearest to them. "We must make for the road again," he said. We cannot hope to find a path through these hills. Whatever danger may beset it, the road is our only way to the ford." As soon as they had eaten, they set out again. They climbed slowly down the southern side of the ridge, but the way was much easier than they had expected, for the slope was far less steep on this side, and before long Frodo was able to ride again. Bill Ferny's poor old pony was developing an unexpected talent for picking out a path and for sparing its rider as many jolts as possible. The spirits of the party rose again. Even Frodo felt better in the morning light, but every now and again a mist seemed to obscure his sight, and he passed his hands over his eyes. Pippin was a little ahead of the others. Suddenly he turned round and called to them. "There is a path here," he cried. When they came up with him, they saw that he had made no mistake. There was clearly the beginnings of a path that climbed with many windings out of the woods below and faded away on the hilltop behind. In places it was now faint and overgrown, or choked with fallen stones and trees, but at one time it seemed to have been much used. It was a path made by strong arms and heavy feet. Here and there old trees had been cut or broken down, and large rocks cloven or heaved aside to make a way. They followed the track for some while, for it offered much the easiest way down, but they went cautiously, and their anxiety increased as they came into the dark woods, and the path grew plainer and broader. Suddenly, coming out of a belt of fir trees, it ran steeply down a slope and turned sharply to the left round the corner of a rocky shoulder of the hill. When they came to the corner, they looked round and saw that the path ran on over a level strip under the face of a low cliff overhung with trees. In the stony wall there was a door hanging crookedly ajar upon one great hinge. All right, I'm running to the bathroom behind this wall to fill this water bottle from the sink. I'll be right back, guys. Don't try to escape, Zoe. Tried to escape early into the hall. Thanks for being here, guys. I'm going to take another hit on the pipe. I'm going to try to get to the end of this rush to the ford. I don't know how long it's going to take to read. I've already gone kind of long. Yeah. Okay. All right. No, but I'll come look when I'm done streaming. When I'm not live. I'll come look as soon as I'm done with this. I'll come out and look. Thanks, Dave. Thank you, sir. All right, cool. I'll come look as soon as I'm done with the stream. I should be done soon. All right, then I'm definitely going to eat it. I'll come look as soon as I'm done streaming. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, sir. Yeah, Dave is awesome. At heart, he is awesome. He wants to feed me. He doesn't like, he wants to hang out right when the streams go on, because it's basically prime time for like grown-ups who stay up late. Like, it's like the window during which I do this is the window during which Dave wants to like get drunk and hang out for a reason. Like, it's this, like, you guys know, you're in the get drunk and hanging out zone yourself right now, or in the small hours of the night when things get weird and lonely, following the get drunk and hanging out part. You guys know exactly where you live, so you know, um, it's what are you doing, kitty? Look at who's behind me. Bye, wagon. But yeah, usually, generally, like by the time I'm done with this reading stream, Dave has passed out. Like, sometimes he's awake and watching TV, and I'm exhausted by then too. But all right, where was I? Right. Outside the door. When they came to the corner, they looked around and saw that the path ran on over a level strip under the face of a low cliff overhung with trees. In the stony wall, there was a door hanging crookedly ajar upon one great hinge. Outside the door, they all halted. There was a cave or rock chamber behind, but in the gloom inside, nothing could be seen. Strider, Sam, and Mary, pushing with all their strength, managed to open the door a little wider, and then Strider and Mary went in. They did not go far, for on the floor lay many old bones, and nothing else was to be seen near the entrance except some great empty jars and broken pots. "Surely this is a troll hole, if ever there was one," said Pippin. "Come out, you two, and let us get away. Now we know who made the path, and we had better get off it quick." "There's no need, I think," said Strider, coming out. "It is certainly a troll hole, but it seems to have been long forsaken. I don't think we need be afraid, but let us go on down warily, and we shall see." I accidentally did that in Gandalf voice for some reason. I guess I miss Gandalf. He hasn't been around for a while. The path went on again from the door, and turning to the right again across the level space plunged down a thick wooded slope. Pippin, not liking to show Strider that he was still afraid, went on ahead with Merry. Sam and Strider came behind, one on each side of Frodo's pony, for the path was now broad enough for 4 or 5 hobbits to walk abreast. But they had not gone very far before Pippin came running back, followed by Merry. They both looked terrified. "There are trolls," Pippin panted, "down in a clearing in the woods not far below. We got a sight of them through the tree trunks. They are very large." "We will come and look at them," said Strider, picking up a stick. Frodo said nothing, but Sam looked scared. The sun was now high, and it shone down through the half-stripped branches of the trees and lit the clearing with bright patches of light. They halted suddenly on the edge and peered through the tree trunks, holding their breath. There stood the trolls, 3 large trolls. One was stooping, and the other 2 stood staring at him. The Strider walked forward unconcernedly. "Get up, old stone," he said, and broke his... Nothing happened. There was a gasp of astonishment from the hobbits, and then even Frodo laughed. "Well," he said, "we are forgetting our family history. These must be the very 3 that were caught by Gandalf, quarreling over the right way to cook 13 dwarves and 1 hobbit." "I had no idea we were anywhere near the place," said Pippin. He knew the story well. Bilbo and Frodo had told it often, but as a matter of fact he had never more than half believed it. Even now he looked at the stone trolls with suspicion, wondering if some magic might not suddenly bring them to life again. "You are forgetting not only your family history, but all you ever knew about trolls," said Strider. "It is broad daylight with a bright sun, and yet you come back trying to scare me with a tale of live trolls waiting for us in this glade. In any case, you might have noticed that one of them has an old bird's nest behind his ear. That would be a most unusual ornament for a live troll." They all laughed. Frodo felt his spirits reviving. The reminder of Bilbo's first successful adventure was heartening. The sun, too, was warm and comforting, and the mist before his eyes seemed to be lifting a little. They rested for some time in the glade and took their midday meal right under the shadow of the troll's large legs. I'm I'm skipping the troll song. I can't stand it. They have a bit where somebody's like, let's have a song, and Sam sings them a song that he wrote about trolls. And I hate it. I hate the whole thing. It's like a page and a half. I apologize. I'm not going to read all of Lord of the Rings. I'm not going to read that. But look, I'll show you if you want to. The Bone of Its Owner, Gandalf. I was just looking at that. I was just looking at that exact thing. Here it is. If you want to. Okay, is that the first part? Yes, it is. Right there. You know what? You can look this up online. But I'm going to... There's some of the poetry I really hate. That one I hate. I'm just going to skip that part. Gandalf, do you remember it, or are you actually looking at a copy of the book? I don't... Well, it's weird that Tolkien and Aleister Crowley and Edgar Allan Poe all have in common that they seem inordinately proud of their poetry compared to their prose, particularly when it's meant to be comic. Like, please don't write comic poetry. Yeah, I don't particularly love Tolkien's like pretentious elf history poems either, but I have the voice to do them out loud. Like I've already the one about Elendil that I already read. Like I've never liked that as much as I did when now I don't love it, but there's some stuff. There's a couple of long poems that have some relevance to the story that I'll read when we get to them. That I bet I'll like more when I read them out loud, which is weird because you would think like I'm reading it to myself, so why would me hearing my own voice do it out loud make a difference? But it does. And I've read them out loud before, but it's been many years. Like I now have, like, I've leveled up since the heart trouble and lung trouble in Tampa, and now I've got the voice for it. In the afternoon, they went on down the woods. They were probably following the very track that Gandalf, Bilbo, and the dwarves had used many years before. After a few miles, they came out on the top of a high bank above the road. At this point, the road had left the Horwell far behind in its narrow valley, and now clung close to the feet of the hills, rolling and winding eastward among woods and heather-covered slopes towards the ford and the mountains. Not far down the bank, Strider pointed out a stone in the grass. On it, roughly cut and now much weathered, could still be seen dwarf runes and secret marks. "There," said Mary. "That must be the stone that marked the place where the troll's gold was hidden. How much is left of Bilbo's share, I wonder, Frodo?" Frodo looked at the stone and wished that Bilbo had brought home no treasure more perilous, nor less easy to part with. "None at all," he said. "Bilbo gave it all away. He told me he did not feel it was really his, as it came from robbers." Rivendell. Yeah, there's a lot of singing at Rivendell. Yep. The road lay quiet under the long shadows of early evening. I'm thinking about bundling this up because my voice is a little bit out. It's 12:57. It's almost 2. I don't know. I did eat that other piece of mushroom gummy. Maybe I should give it a second. I should just give it a second. Kind of hungry. Man, I really want a cigarette. My heart and lungs are not straight. I shouldn't even be smoking weed. But I really want to smoke. Oh no. What a world. Must it come to this? All my days being bad without the bullets, as Tom Waits said. I'm really just giving myself a second to rest my voice, like my breathing. It's not, my voice gets tired. I just don't want my performance to be off. Like, I get lightheaded from all the breathing, from all the excess, like projecting slightly. But I don't want to back off of the doing the radio announcer level voice. Like, that's what makes it cool. It's fun to interrupt it by just hanging out too. It's fun that it's two different voices. I mean, in theory, at some point like these and the Lovecraft streams and the other reading streams, I or somebody will go edit the sound and make a real audiobook recording. I should get a little mic. Yeah. I have a note about the Shure microphone I need. I just, yeah. It's on the list. Things I got to do once I get moved into my own place here presently. It's one of the first things I'm going to buy. And that also is one of those things where once I've got my eyes on a specific mic, the channel will buy it for me. Like, there are certain things where I can be like, you guys, the thing I need is $80 and somebody will help. Like, boom. The hairy one that sticks on your shirt. I wrote down it's some kind of Shure internet microphone, but the funny thing is, Hassan Piker made a joke about, like, any motherfucker with a such and such mic thinks he's a live streamer. And I was like, okay, that's the entry level mic I need. Like, I knew from the joke, like, that he was belittling the microphone, that I was like, okay, that's the one. That's the one I need to plug into the laptop. My phone has better sound now. The laptop, the on deck microphone, well, I don't actually know where it is, for one thing. I don't know how to tell where it is. I mean, I guess I don't want to snap my finger over that. I have a level. I have a level that's a little gauge. I can figure out where it is by, maybe I don't want to know where it is because I'll just lean right up to it. I really like the closet sound effect you get when the microphone is just really, really close to, like, when I was doing serious audiobook recordings for a while with a digital 8-track I had in Miami. I was doing Lovecraft, and I would get so close to the mic and make the mic so hot that I would turn my head to the side to breathe so that you couldn't hear me breathing. It was really kind of spooky. Microphones are better now, though. That was 10 years ago, and I was using an SM58. I was using a Shure SM58. I mean, those aren't those are the same now. The hairy one that sticks on your shirt. What are those called? Lavalier mics? I remember having to memorize that for a test answer in film school. That, like, there were 3 different kinds of mics, and one of them's lavalier. Oh my god, that is such an old man brain thing for my brain to do. Okay, I'm gonna read some more. I'm gonna try to get through the Ford. I know this stream is kind of long. It's also not. I didn't realize it's not the best place to stop right after the Ford, but it's only 6 more pages. I'm afraid I'm getting a little mealy-mouthed, guys. I apologize, but I want to get through this part. The road lay quiet under the long shadows of early evening. There was no sign of any other travelers to be seen. As there was now no other possible course for them to take, they climbed down the bank and, turning left, went off as fast as they could. Soon a shoulder of the hills cut off the light of the fast westering sun. A cold wind flowed down to meet them from the mountains ahead. They were beginning to look out for a place off the road where they could camp for the night when they heard a sound that brought sudden fear back into their hearts, the noise of hoofs behind them. They looked back, but they could not see far because of the many windings and rollings of the road. As quickly as they could, they scrambled off the beaten way and up into the deep heather and bilberry brushwood on the slopes above until they came out to a small patch of thick-growing hazels. As they peered out from among the bushes, they could see the road, faint and gray in the failing light, some 30 feet below them. The sound of hoofs drew nearer. They were going fast with a light clippity-clippity-clip. Then faintly, as if it was blown away from them by the breeze, they seemed to catch a dim ringing as of small bells tinkling. "That does not sound like a Black Rider's horse," said Frodo, listening intently. The other hobbits agreed hopefully that it did not, but they all remained full of suspicion. They had been in fear of pursuit for so long that any sound from behind seemed ominous and unfriendly. But Strider was now leaning forward, stooped to the ground with a hand to his ear and a look of joy on his face. The light faded and the leaves on the bushes rustled softly. Clearer and nearer now the bells jingled, and clippity-clip came the quick trotting feet. Suddenly into view came a white horse. And if I keep messing up, I'm going to stop. Rogan, pull it together. Suddenly, into view below came a white horse, gleaming in the shadows, running swiftly. In the dusk, its headstall flickered and flashed, as if it were studded with gems like living stars. The rider's cloak streamed behind him, and his hood was thrown back. His golden hair flowed shimmering in the wind of his speed. To Frodo, it appeared that a white light was shining through the form and raiment of the rider as if through a thin veil. Strider sprang from hiding and dashed down towards the road, leaping with a cry through the heather. But even before he had moved or called, the rider had reined in his horse and halted, looking up towards the thicket where they stood. When he saw Strider, he dismounted and ran to meet him, calling out, "E na vedui Dunedain, mai govanen." His speech and clear ringing voice left no doubt in their hearts the rider was of the elven folk. Oh, well, I did that wrong. No others that dwelt in the wide world had voices so fair to hear. But there seemed to be a note of haste or fear in his call, and they saw that he was now speaking quickly and urgently to Strider. Soon Strider beckoned to them, and the hobbits left the bushes and hurried down to the road. "This is Glorfindel, who dwells in the house of Elrond," said Strider. "Hail, and well met at last," said the elf lord to Frodo. "I was sent from Rivendell to look for you. We feared that you were in danger upon the road." "Then Gandalf has reached Rivendell," cried Frodo joyfully. "No, he had not when I departed, but that was 9 days ago," answered Glorfindel. "Elrond received news that troubled him. Some of my kindred, journeying in your land beyond the Barren Duin, learned that things were amiss and sent messages as swiftly as they could. They said that the Nine were abroad and that you were astray, bearing a great burden without guidance, for Gandalf had not returned. There are few even in Rivendell that can ride openly against the Nine, but such as there were, Elrond sent out north, west, and south. It was thought that you might turn far aside to avoid pursuit and become lost in the wilderness. It was my lot to take the road, and I came to the bridge of Mithiathel and left a token there, nigh on 7 days ago. 3 of the servants of Sauron were upon the bridge, but they withdrew, and I pursued them westward. I came also upon 2 others, but they turned away southward. Since then I have searched for your trail. 2 days ago I found it and followed it over the bridge, and today I marked where you descended from the hills again. But come, there is no time for further news. Since you are here, we must risk the peril of the road and go. There are 5 behind us, and when they find your trail upon the road, they will ride after us like the wind. And they are not all. Where the other 4 may be, I do not know. I fear that we may find the fort is already held against us." Thanks, Craig. While Glorfindel was speaking, the shades of evening deepened. Frodo felt a great weariness come over him. Ever since the sun began to sink, the mist before his eyes had darkened, and he felt that a shadow was coming between him and the faces of his friends. Now pain assailed him, and he felt cold. He swayed, clutching at Sam's arm. "My master is sick and wounded," said Sam angrily. "He can't go on riding after nightfall. He needs rest." Glorfindel caught Frodo as he sank to the ground, and taking him gently in his arms, he looked in his face with grave anxiety. Briefly, Strider told of the attack on their camp under Weathertop and of the deadly knife. He drew out the hilt which he had kept and handed it to the elf. Glorfindel shuddered as he took it, but he looked intently at it. "There are evil things written on this hilt," he said, "though maybe your eyes cannot see them. Keep it, Aragorn, till we reach the house of Elrond, but be wary and handle it as little as you may." Alas, the wounds of this weapon are beyond my skill to heal. I will do what I can, but all the more do I urge you now to go on without rest." He searched the wound on Frodo's shoulder with his fingers, and his face grew graver, as if what he learned disquieted him. But Frodo felt the chill lessen in his side and arm. A little warmth crept down from his shoulder to his hand, and the pain grew easier. The dusk of evening seemed to grow lighter about him, as if a cloud had been withdrawn. He saw his friends' faces more clearly again, and a measure of new hope and strength returned. "You shall ride my horse," said Glorfindel. "I will shorten the stirrups up to the saddle skirts, and you must sit as tight as you can. But you need not fear. My horse will not let any rider fall that I command him to bear. His pace is light and smooth, and if danger presses too near, he will bear you away with a speed that even the black steeds of the enemy cannot rival." "No, he will not," said Frodo. "I shall not ride him if I am to be carried off to Rivendell or anywhere else, leaving my friends behind in danger." Glorfindel smiled. "I doubt very much," he said, "if your friends would be in danger if you were not with them. The pursuit would follow you and leave us in peace, I think. It is you, Frodo, and that which you bear that brings us all in peril." To that Frodo had no answer, and he was persuaded to mount Glorfindel's white horse. The pony was laden instead with a great part of the others' burdens, so that they now marched lighter and for a time made good speed. But the hobbits began to find it hard to keep up with the swift, tireless feet of the elf. On he led them into the mouth of darkness, and still on under the deep clouded night. There was neither star nor moon. Not until the gray of dawn did he allow them to halt. "Yes, Zoe. What is it? You want more treats, huh?" "That is what it is, isn't it? Where did I put the other bag of treats? Oh, these treats? Yeah? Yeah, that's what you guys wanted? There you go." Pippin, Merry, and Sam were by that time nearly asleep on their stumbling legs, and even Strider seemed by the sag of his shoulders to be weary. Frodo sat upon the horse in a dark dream. They cast themselves down in the heather a few yards from the roadside and fell asleep immediately. They seemed hardly to have closed their eyes when Glorfindel, who had set himself to watch while they slept, awoke them again. The sun had now climbed far into the morning, and the clouds and mists of the night were gone. "Drink this," said Glorfindel to them, pouring for each in turn a little liquor from his silver-studded flask of leather. It was clear as spring water and had no taste, and it did not feel either cool or warm in the mouth, but strength and vigor seemed to flow into all their limbs as they drank it. Eaten after that draught, the stale bread and dried fruit, which was now all that they had left, seemed to satisfy their hunger better than many a good breakfast in the Shire had done. They had rested rather less than 5 hours when they took to the road again. Glorfindel still urged them on, and only allowed 2 brief halts during the day's march. In this way, they covered almost 20 miles before nightfall, and came to a point where the road bent right and ran down towards the bottom of the valley, now making straight for the Bruinen. So far there had been no sign or sound of pursuit that the hobbits could see or hear, but often Glorfindel would halt and listen for a moment if they lagged behind, and a look of anxiety clouded his face. Once or twice he spoke to Strider in the elf tongue. But however anxious their guides might be, it was plain that the hobbits could go no further that night. They were stumbling along dizzy with weariness and unable to think of anything but their feet and legs. Frodo's pain had redoubled, and during the day things about him faded to shadows of ghostly gray. He almost welcomed the coming of night, for then the world seemed less pale and empty. I keep muting it for a second because I'm having sort of a snot attack. I hate to clear my throat on these streams audibly because I know I make a bunch of gross snorfy noises because I know people are falling asleep. All right, I think the itching and snorfing is under control. The itching in my ear that suddenly attended on the snorfing. I have bad allergies. Mississippi and this dusty room I'm in are not great for the allergies. Hello, Karen. How are you? Nice to see you again. The hobbits were still weary when they set out again early next morning. There were many miles yet to go between them and the ford, and they hobbled forward at the best pace they could manage. Our peril will be the greatest just ere we reach the river, said Glorfindel, for my heart warns me that the pursuit is now swift behind us, and other danger may be waiting by the ford. The road was still running steadily downhill, and there was now in places much grass at either side, in which the hobbits walked when they could to ease their tired feet. In the late afternoon they came to a place where the road went suddenly under the dark shadow of tall pine trees, and then plunged into a deep cutting with steep moist walls of red stone. Echoes ran along as they hurried forward, and there seemed to be a sound of many footfalls following their own. All at once, as if through a gate of light, the road ran out again from the end of the tunnel into the open. There, at the bottom of a sharp incline, they saw before them a long, flat mile, and beyond that, the ford of Rivendell. On the further side was a steep brown bank, threaded by a winding path, and behind that the tall mountains climbed, shoulder above shoulder, and peak beyond peak, into the fading sky. There was still an echo as of following feet in the cutting behind them, a rushing noise as if a wind were rising and pouring through the branches of the pines. One moment Glorfindel turned and listened, then he sprang forward with a loud cry. "Fly," he called, "fly! The enemy is upon us!" The white horse leaped forward. The hobbits ran down the slope. Glorfindel and Strider followed as rear guard. They were only halfway across the flat when suddenly there was a noise of horses galloping. Out of the gate in the trees that they had just left rode a black rider. He reined his horse in and halted, swaying in his saddle. Another followed him, and then another, then again 2 more. "Ride forward, ride!" cried Glorfindel to Frodo. He did not obey at once, for a strange reluctance seized him. Checking the horse to a walk, he turned and looked back. The riders seemed to sit upon their great steeds like threatening statues upon a hill dark and solid, while all the woods and land about them receded as if into a mist. Suddenly he silently commanding him to wait. Then at once fear and hatred awoke in him. His hand left the bridle and gripped the hilt of his sword, and with a red flash he drew it. Ride on, cried Glorfindel, and then loud and clear he called to the horse in the elf tongue, Noralim, Noralim, Asphaloth. At once the white horse sprang away and sped like the wind along the last lap of the road. At the same moment the black horses leaped down the hill in pursuit, and from the riders came a terrible cry, such as Frodo had heard filling the woods with horror in the East Farthing far away. It was answered, and to the dismay of Frodo and his friends, out from the trees and rocks away on the left 4 other riders came flying. 2 rode towards Frodo, 2 galloped madly towards the ford to cut off his escape. They seemed to him to run like the wind and to grow swiftly larger and darker as their courses converged with his. Zoe, do not try to jump onto the computer. No. No, just settle. Frodo looked back for a moment over his shoulder. He could no longer see his friends. The riders behind were falling back. Even their great steeds were no match in speed for the white elf horse of Glorfindel. Glorfindel, such an unfortunate name for this. Even their great steeds were no match in speed for the white elf horse of Glorfindel. He looked forward again, and hope faded. There seemed no chance of reaching the ford before he was cut off by the others that had lain in ambush. He could see them clearly now. They appeared to have cast aside their hoofs and black cloaks, and were robed in white and gray. Swords were naked in their pale hands, helms were on their heads. Their cold eyes glittered, and they called to him with fell voices. Fear now filled all Frodo's mind. He thought no longer of his sword. No cry came from him. He shut his eyes and clung to the horse's mane. The wind whistled in his ears, and the bells upon the harness rang wild and shrill. A breath of deadly cold pierced him like a spear, as with a last spurt, like a flash of white fire, the elf horse, spreading as if on wings, passed right before the face of the foremost rider. Frodo heard the splash of water. It foamed about his feet. He felt the quick heave and surge as the horse left the river and struggled up the stony path. He was climbing the steep bank. He was across the ford. But the pursuers were close behind. At the top of the bank, the horse halted and turned about, neighing fiercely. There were 9 riders at the water's edge below, and Frodo's spirit quailed before the threat of their uplifted faces. He knew of nothing that would prevent them from crossing as easily as he had done, and he felt that it was useless to try to escape over the long, uncertain path from the ford to the edge of Rivendell if once the riders crossed. In any case, he felt that he was commanded urgently to halt. Hatred again stirred in him, but he had no longer the strength to refuse. Suddenly, the foremost rider spurred his horse forward. It checked at the water and reared up. With a great effort, Frodo sat upright and brandished his sword. "Go back," he cried. "Go back to the land of Mordor and follow me no more." His voice sounded thin and shrill in his own ears. The riders halted, but Frodo had not the power of Bombadil. His enemies laughed at him with a harsh and chilling laughter. Come back, they called. "To Mordor we will take you." "Go back," he whispered. The ring, they cried with deadly voices, and immediately their leader urged his horse forward into the water, followed closely by 2 others. "By Elbereth and Luthien the Fair," said Frodo with a last effort, lifting up his sword, "you shall have neither the ring nor me." Then the leader, who was now half across the ford, stood up menacing in his stirrups and raised up his hand. Frodo was stricken dumb. He felt his tongue cleave to his mouth and his heart laboring. His sword broke and fell out of his shaking hand. The elf horse reared and snorted. The foremost of the black horses had almost set foot upon the shore. At that moment there came a roaring and a rushing, a noise of loud waters rolling many stones. Dimly Frodo saw the river below him rise, and down along its course there came a plumed cavalry of waves. White flames seemed to Frodo to flicker on their crests, and he half fancied that he saw amid the water white riders upon white horses with frothing manes. The 3 riders that were still in the midst of the ford were overwhelmed. They disappeared, buried suddenly under angry foam. Those that were behind drew back in dismay. With his last failing senses, Frodo heard cries, and it seemed to him that he saw, beyond the riders that hesitated on the shore, a shining figure of white light, and behind it ran small shadowy forms waving flames that flared red in the gray mist that was falling over the world. The black horses were filled with madness, and leaping forward in terror, they bore their riders into the rushing flood. Their piercing cries were drowned in the roaring of the river as it carried them away. Then Frodo felt himself falling, and the roaring and confusion seemed to rise and engulf him together with his enemies. He heard and saw no more. I kind of hadn't noticed that book 1 of Lord of the Rings ends. It's the ending of a Little Nemo in Slumberland strip. Like, it's all tumbling and confusion and chaos and stuff blowing up, and it just gets crazier and crazier until Frodo starts spinning into darkness. Also, it's like the cliffhanger at the end of part of a serial. What will happen to Frodo? Tune in for episode 7 of The Lord of the Rings. What is the next chapter called? Main meetings. For those of you who don't know, so his enemies died in the water? No, actually, Karen, because they're ring wraiths, so they can't be killed that easily. But they get washed away, they get rumbled, and they have to come back. I think the horses, the 3 that lose their horses, come back on flying steeds that are like pterodactyls, but it takes them a minute to regroup. Yeah, they get washed away in the flood, but they come back. Kind of like Darth Vader at the end of episode 4, actually. What happened to my bookmark? I'm gonna call it there, you guys. So it was like an illusion. No, yeah, they're magical ghosts. They're like zombies, is probably the best way to think about it, Karen. They don't they can't be killed that easily. They can only be killed with magical assistance. And there was magic involved in this, but it was sort of Is it Gandalf or Elrond who did it? Gandalf, you'll remember. But somebody magicked the river to wash them away, but it really only affected the horses. Um, they're physically present enough, like they're ghost slave to the rings they're wearing, so they do get washed away. But it's like they're insubstantial enough that they can't be killed that way at all. Um, weren't they dead kings? Right, nine rings for the 9 rings for mortal kings. How does the rhyme go? Hold on, it's right here. Hold on. Wait, I thought it was at the top of the actual text. It's repeated twice. Like it's at the top of the text, and then like it's in the text. It's totally like in the Wolfman. 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die. So they're explicitly zombies. They're ghosts. They're ghost kings. Like the rivers under Elrond's command. Yeah, Gandalf. I think they talk about it. Like it's a special spell, but it seems more satisfying to me to think of it as like a defense system. like those ring wraiths can't cross that river. But it wouldn't yeah, moral men would be mushroom people. Like in Fungus Island, the famous story that was the basis for Matango Attack of the Mushroom People, the Inashiro Honda picture from 1964, maybe 68. Why does my brain retain some things and not others? Attack of the Mushroom People is terrifying. That movie is great. I wish I still had the book I had that story in it, Fungus Island. It's a great story. Maybe I'll live long enough to get back some of these books and read some of these stories. Lord of the Rings isn't going to take as long to read as I thought. That's 10 streams for book 1, so presumably it's 50 more streams, more or less. Books 5 and 6 are shorter. It's book 6 is, I think. Yeah, that movie is really creepy. It's based on a short story that was, I want to say, the book that I had that short story in was a collection called Famous Fantastic Mysteries that was all drawn from that specific magazine, Famous Fantastic Mysteries, which was like unknown. It didn't run very long, but it was hugely influential. Remember there being a really good Abraham Merritt story in that book too. I got to read some Abraham Merritt. I got to read The Moon Pool and The Metal Monster. Speaking of mushrooms, Abraham Merritt grew his own mushrooms and his own peyote in New York. He had a special greenhouse in his penthouse apartment where he grew hallucinogenic plants. And he wrote The Moon Pool and The Metal Monster. Those are the 2 I want to read out loud, though. Ship of Ishtar is great. 7 Footprints to Satan. There's at least 2 more Abraham Merritt novels that would be really fun to read out loud. I feel like I shouldn't do these streams for so long because 2 hours and 15 minutes is pretty long for a reading stream, but there's so much book to get through. Yeah, my voice is a little trashed. And I'm a little lit for how late it is at night. I took that extra mushroom gummy and now I'm cross-eyed, tired, and wide awake. I should maybe go do a chat stream. It's only 1:30, but my voice is so rough now. Dave being drunk is just so disturbing. He's literally drunk and falling down. Wish I could do more. Wish I could be more. I hate it that there isn't more left of me. There's so much to do. And there's so little left of me. So many parts of me are broken off. I sound like I need to go to bed. Yeah, I totally do. Yeah. I need to not do another stream. I have nervous energy now from that last mushroom gummy. So yeah, I need to do something that's low key. Like either read for like to find some stories for stream or watch movies for stream. I should probably eat something. I didn't eat right today. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much. Didn't Dave have food for me? He did, Gandalf. Yeah. I mean, he was staggering around drunk and falling over, and then he made a point of interrupting the stream to tell me to eat some specific stuff in the fridge. Yeah. But it's so painful to eat. I don't want to eat. Like, I had to take Tylenol 3 times and ibuprofen once just to get through the stream. It hurts a lot to eat anything. It's kind of why I'm not in a great mood the last couple of days. Have some water. Yeah, I need to drink water like it's my job. Thank you, guys. I will see you in the next one. Yeah, I'm trying to read Tolkien every night. I seem to be hitting about 2 nights out of 3. You have trouble eating? I'm sorry, Karen. Yeah, it sucks having trouble eating. At least my digestion isn't giving me too much trouble. There have been times when I've had a dicey stomach. My stomach's been okay lately. It's my teeth that are the problem recently. You know what? My teeth being a problem actually is helping my stomach be less of a problem because I can't eat most of the stuff that upsets my stomach. I hadn't really thought about that. You have a narrowed esophagus? Oh, that sounds really unpleasant. Hey, guys, I'll see you at a small hernia in your stomach, like the kind that you don't have to have repaired, so it just gives you trouble. That sucks. Yeah, it was too cold for me to go to the store and get groceries today. I have ramen noodles, but yeah, Dave bought groceries. I can go root around in his groceries and eat the stuff he told me I should eat. Ham and chicken. I dread what it will do to my mouth. If only this world were something less hellish than the world it is. I guess, the storytelling wouldn't be so good. We wouldn't need such high quality distraction. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I don't know when I'm going to stream tomorrow. I have days off until Friday. Lima, Ohio is at 16 tonight. Yeah, see, it's probably like about 40 here right now, and the space heater's keeping up okay. It's pleasantly chilly in here. It's a little clammy. Thanks for being here, guys. Yeah, I don't know what schedule I'm going to follow tomorrow. I have the day off, but I should really try to take it easy. Like I should. My heart wasn't straight today, so I've already overdone it, like tonight, the streaming. But at least it's sitting down and talking and not out riding the bike around running errands, which is what I need to do a bunch of tomorrow. So we'll see what kind of shape I'm in. Thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you in the next one.